Welcome to the Neolithic Swamp, which is also a bunch of polygons. Hey, let's call this polygon Neolithic game POLYLITHIC, fighting saber-toothed cats and mammoths, like the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. But surely it's not that bad, right? Well, let's find out. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that would fit into most survival games, based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. POLYLITHIC is a survival game where you play as a caveman trying to survive in a world where everything wants to kill you, even the air. You become the leader of a tribe and have to lead them through the years and build up their tribe from huts to houses, make farms, and hunt mammoths. This game is an odd one, so while the graphics themselves are not intensive, you need a very good processor, and even then, the game is so intensive that the settings that it's recommending here, I actually don't recommend at all. I think you need to have a better, higher end computer in order to play this game, but I'll talk about more on that in the issues and bugs section. The character creation is garbage in my opinion. You have to choose between a pre-made character and the pre-made names with very little variation. Hell, the names you choose from are just from the same pool as the NPC tribesmen, so it'll randomly generate one of those for the NPCs that you have in your tribe. I'm going to give this section a 2 out of 5. There is just enough choices to make an alright looking character, but it's not as bad as Salt 1. But not having the choice to create your own character, or even just pick your own name, or even type out your own name is a bit disappointing. So I'm going to start off by saying this. I think the game was originally supposed to be a top-down, action combat kind of game, like Diablo or something like that, but you can zoom in just enough to play it in a third-person style game. But the issue is, because of that, you're not able to look up with the controller, and because you're supposed to move around with the WASD buttons, your camera is not going to move with you. You have to constantly have your right mouse button down to mouse over and move the camera as you run. So it's a little bit annoying, but you can get used to it very easy. The game has different modes to play from, story mode and sandbox mode. Sandbox mode, you start off in the middle of a seeded world with a shaman. Once you choose where to live, you can have him settle down and establish your home to start building up. For story mode, you start off in a desert looking area with a few quest NPCs. They tell you that they are all running from a green mist that covers the land, and you are trying to get them to the valley where it's safe. Now, this is a starting segment, and it's very linear, teaching you the basics of the game one by one. Once you reach the end, you are told to hunt a mammoth. The mammoth will wipe out your friends as well as you, but this is supposed to happen, as once it does, the logo plays with a cutscene, and you meet the shaman of another tribe. He tells you that you are to become the leader of this tribe because he is too old to lead. So you stroll on up, become a new member of the tribe, and spend a year with them to become the new chieftain. Oh, and when I say 1 year, it's really just a couple of quests. For the start of this game, I am going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. It teaches you the game over time, and you unlock new recipes slowly by doing the main quests, and it worked out fairly well. So I'm gonna have a bit of an issue with this part. I don't think the map on any mode is a good one. You either choose story mode, which gives you a handcrafted map, yet it is super small, or you could choose sandbox mode to get a large sprawling procedural map, yet it is so buggy. The rivers are practically in the air, or there's no rivers at all where there should be, so you have fish flying around. It's really not that playable. I wanted to play in the sandbox mode due to other reasons, but the fact that the map was unplayable is the reason why I chose story mode instead. The only benefit to sandbox mode is that you have all of the items unlocked from the start, and it's only a matter of grinding up resources to make and build your village. While in story mode, you don't really get to do that. I'm going to touch on this again, but in story mode, every time you need to migrate for winter, your camp is left behind and you need to rebuild from scratch every single time, so it becomes tedious and flat out annoying to do so. I could have gotten over it easily and just, build the essentials to progress, but the fact that the map is so small, you can cross it in a few minutes, and even with the verticality around the rivers, there's just a lack of biomes too. The desert from the start of the game is no longer accessible, and there's only a very small snow biome with really not any reason to go there unless a quest sends you there. When you open up the map, it seems as if the map is much larger than it actually is, if not for the mist keeping you in. I assumed you can unlock more of the map through the story mode and progressing, but after asking on the forums, the developer himself confirmed that the map does not expand, and it is the size that it is. So there is your choice, a handcrafted map with hardly any biomes, or a larger map with multiple biomes, yet buggy as hell. So for that, I am going to rate this a 2 out of 5. The survival is basic. There is really only a food mechanic that works similar to Valheim. You can eat different food types, up to 3, and increase your health in different amounts, though there are really only 4 food types: meat, fish, nuts, and berries. Later on, you can unlock wheat to make bread, but that is years into the story mode progression when you finally unlock farming. Beyond that, there's really not much to this section, so I'm gonna give the survival a flat 3 out of 5. When you build buildings or workstations, you have to have the required items before you place it down. From there, you will need a tool to build it up over the course of a few seconds, whether it's a needle or an axe. While there are some tents that you can make in a single step, to build a hut or a home for your NPCs, it requires multiple steps. From the frame, to the cover, to decorations. While the decorations are cool, they are mandatory and not optional in order for the hut to be considered complete, as I already tried to set it up without the decorations. The game also at some point tells you that you need a bed in it in order to be considered complete. You cannot put the bed in the tent without the decorations, that's how I found out you need them. But also, whether you actually don't, or it's bugged, because I never put a bed in the tent just to test it out, and it still considered it complete. For the crafting itself, to other items like weapons, you will be required to have different tools like the chopper and the axe, or the knife, as well as other required items. Luckily, you don't need many resources to make the items, but you do need to craft often. Weapons and tools have durability with no way to repair it, you just have to rebuild it. Another thing that is annoying for story mode is that you cannot make more storage units until several years into the questline. You can assign your NPCs to do various tasks like crafting, gathering, and hunting. They do need to eat and stay well fed, though I found that the rate at which they eat is so low. As long as you have just one follower hunting and cooking, or even just gathering berries, you will have an abundance of food constantly. Beyond that, gathering resources like logs, clay, twigs, and such will help for when you have to consistently keep rebuilding your home. Overall, the system, while it has annoyances, it works. I wish there was a system to draw from the storage units, but besides that, I'm gonna rate this section a 4 out of 5. PvE is also so basic that it's really a joke, and on the other hand, it's enraging. The NPC's AI for combat is written so poorly that the wolves or bears and some other creatures, you can easily just circle around them and stab with a spear for an easy kill. They can't really hit you back like that. Even with the mammoth, who has an AoE ability, you simply step back for his stomp, then you go back in and continue circling. Now, if you bring followers with you, or your camp gets attacked in the middle of the night, which happens often, your NPCs are not that reliable. Sometimes they can help by doing additional damage. The more NPCs with weapons certainly does help. However, they have almost no health. If they get swiped by a bear or a mammoth, they just die instantly. And what's worse is that you cannot pick up their items and recover their resources or weapons. Sometimes you can find quests to kill mini-boss creatures, which are visibly different from normal creatures, like the white stag or the white bear. They will be stronger than their variants, but I don't think I've ever had issues with any of them, especially if you bring followers with ranged weapons. I also found that it's easy to kill things like saber-tooths because they would just get stuck on a rock and it'd be very easy to kill them since they won't be able to fight back. And the last point, I don't really know if there is dynamic spawning or not because it seems to me that creatures spawn in the same manner as Green Hell, where there is an area for the creature to spawn and there is a chance it could or could not be there. So the plains near where you first start off almost always will have deer, but they might not spawn, and nearby there might be the cows, but the cows, or bison rather, may or may not be there. And across the river are where the mammoths spawn, but again, they may or may not be there. But besides that one area, I have not seen a mammoth in any other part of the map. So it's a little bit dynamic, so you're always guessing, but at the same time, if you need to hunt a mammoth or you need to hunt a bison and they're not there, well, you're just going to have to keep running back and forth until they eventually just spawn. I'm going to rate this section a 2 out of 5. It's not really functional and bugs out half the time. You also have the fact that you will constantly lose your NPCs if they get an unlucky spawning bear or saber-tooth near your camp. The story delivery is mostly through quests with the shaman, as well as a few cutscenes, which usually happen during the migration quests. You also have some side quests and environmental storytelling, as well as other methods. Though the main issue is that I have more questions than answers. Like, what is the green fog that is surrounding the map? Why is there a futuristic helmet that you can find? How can your tribe leave the valley for winter when the green mist is surrounding it? It just feels very sloppy in my opinion, which is why I'm just gonna rate this a 3 out of 5. Just because the game is a polygon style does not mean it will run on a potato. A game that is naturally polygon looking because it is an older game with older technology would run just fine on today's systems. However, if you intentionally make a game that looks like a polygon, then the forced look will cause your game to run much worse, due to the fact that the game needs to constantly register each side and corner of the models, which is why even on a higher end rig, it will have infrequent frame rates. That is what happened to me. Whether I had these settings on high or low, the frames were constantly infrequent, from 60 to 20 to 40 to 30, I could not make it consistent. Beyond the frame rate issues, there are also so many more problems with the game, from ammo disappearing from corpses as you loot it instead of staying behind like it's supposed to NPCs randomly going around the map and even outside of the map, outside of the boundaries into the green fog area. There were times that the game refused to let me use the bow, even though I had arrows and good durability on the bow and full energy. NPCs that you assign tasks to sometimes will refuse to do them, like making javelins, even if you have all of the required items to make it and put them in the storage or even in their inventory, they will refuse to make the javelin. The pet dog that you can get to tame in the game, I never once to enjoy having a pet dog, because literally right after being tamed, the dog went into the river and got stuck, and I could not get him out no matter what I did, so there was nothing I could do to get him unstuck. All of that was simply in story mode, and I've already mentioned why the sandbox mode is unplayable. So I'm gonna give this section a 2 out of 5. While it's not unplayable in a sense where, you keep crashing or whatever, it does get on your nerves with the amount of issues that you will face. My overall score for the early access of POLYLITHIC, a 2.8 out of 5. It does have a lot of potential. The first few hours of gameplay, I was actually having a lot of fun, but it was a combination of many things that slowly made me stop playing, from the size of the map, to the fact that the quest givers were located outside of said map in the green mist sometimes, to having to rebuild your base every single time you moved. It got tedious, and this is just an early access, so hopefully this will all be addressed. New things added, expanded upon in developmental cycle, and so on. But for now, that is going to be the end of this review, and I will see you next time. that is the end of this video. If you liked my review, please subscribe to this channel as I will be making more in-depth reviews of open-world sandbox survival RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about from the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for what game to do next, please comment below and like this video. Florida Gator Man out.